Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, welcome to today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're online, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. This is live from Iskcon, Dublin. My name is Amanda Vikram Das and we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam for an hour, Mondays and Tuesdays on this channel. Feel free to comment and express your inquiries about the text or about anything else. So let's get going. Before we start reading, we recite Mahima Stotra or glorification verses of Srimad Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. Shastra Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vidaika Satpala Sarva Siddhantna Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikpradam. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all of the worlds. Check. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Shrimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvantodita Ditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life, heir of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali, you are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Patnaya Prema Vakshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishna Namostame. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be sought by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madhika Bandho Matsangin Mad Goro Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtaraka Mad Bhagya Madananda Namostate. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Sadutadain Atinicho Chataraka Hanamunchakada Chinmam Premna Hrit Kantayos Puram. O bestower of saintliness and unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. And then we also recite the more common verses of glorification or Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaivam narotanam devin saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta Presho Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatu Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, welcome again everyone who joined us for today's reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are continuing. Yesterday we read a good portion of the chapter 4 of the fourth canto, where we see a discussion between Sati and his father. So we're continuing today at verse 26. And just hold on just to see where everyone is. Okay. Carry on here. Okie dokie. All right, let's get into reading. So now Sage Maitreya, if I remember well, Sage Maitreya speaks Excuse me. Thus, in order to give up her body, that's Sati, which had been so respectfully and affectionately seated on the lap of Lord Shiva, who is worshipped by great sages and saints, Sati, due to anger towards her father, began to meditate on the fiery air within the body. So we heard that she was trained in this yogic discipline that she can leave her body on her own. So there you go. The purport to this verse is Srila Prabhupada. Lord Shiva is described herein as the best of all great souls. Although Sati's body was born of Daksha, Lord Shiva used to adore her by sitting her on his lap. This is considered a great token of respect. Thus Sati's body was not ordinary, but still she decided to give it up because it was the source of unhappiness because of its connection with Daksha. This severe example set by Sati is to be followed. One should be extremely careful about associating with persons who are not respectful to the higher authorities. It is therefore instructed in the Vedic literature that one should always be free from the association of atheists and non-devotees and should try to associate with devotees, for by the association of a devotee one can be elevated to the platform of self-realization. This injunction is stressed in many places in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one wants to be liberated from the clutches of material existence, then one has to associate with great souls, and if one wants to continue one's material existential life, then one may associate with persons who are materialistic. The materialistic way of life is based on sex life. Thus both becoming addicted to sex life and associating with persons who are addicted to sex life are condemned in Vedic literature, because such association will simply interfere with one's spiritual progress. However, association with great personalities, devotees who are great souls, will elevate one to the spiritual platform. Sati Devi decided to quit the body she had obtained from Daksha's body, and she wanted to transfer herself to another body so that she might have completely uncontaminated association with Lord Shiva. Of course, it is understood that in her next life she would take birth as the daughter of the Himalayas, Parvati, and then she would again accept Lord Shiva as her husband. Sati and Lord Shiva are eternally related. Even after she changes her body, their relationship is never broken. Hare Krishna. So here we see the principle that the man is known by the company he keeps. So the association is highly praised and advised to be the most congenial, conducive to for someone's progress. Text 27. Sati concentrated all her meditation on the holy lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is the supreme spiritual master of all of the world. Thus she became completely cleansed of all taints of sin and quit her body in a blazing fire by meditation on the fiery elements. Purport. Sati at once thought of the lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is one of the three great personalities Godhead in charge of the management of the material world, and simply by meditating on his lotus feet, she derived such great pleasure that she forgot everything in relationship with her body. This pleasure was certainly material because she gave up her body for another body that was also material. But by this example we can appreciate the devotee's pleasure in concentrating his mind and attention on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu or Krishna. There is such transcendental bliss in simply meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord that one can forget everything but the Lord's transcendental form. This is the perfection of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. In this verse it is stated that by such meditation she became free from all contamination. What was that contamination? The contamination was her concept of the body derived from Daksha, but she forgot that bodily relationship in trance. The purport is, When the purport is that when one becomes free from all bodily relationships within this material world and simply places himself in the position of an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that all the contamination of his material attachment has been burned by the blazing fires of transcendental ecstasy. It is not necessary for one to manifest a blazing fire externally, for if one forgets all his bodily relationships within this material world and becomes situated in his spiritual identity, it is said that one has been freed from all material contamination by the blazing fire of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. Yogic samadhi. I have to practice that pronunciation and ecstasy. The process to get oneself to that state, which is yama, starts with yama and yama, and then the posture, asana, and so on, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Maybe I forgot one. That is the topmost perfection of yoga. If one keeps his bodily relationships within this material world and poses himself as a great yogi, he is not a bona fide yogi. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.15 is stated, Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately freed from material contamination, the material bodily concept, by the blazing fire of ecstasy. This effect takes place immediately, without a second's delay. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, that Sati quit her body means that she gave up within her heart her relationship with Daksha. Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur also comments that since Sati is the superintendent deity of the external potency, when she quit her body, she did not get a spiritual body, but simply transferred from the body she had received from Daksha. Other commentators also say that she immediately transferred herself into the womb of Menaka, her future mother. She gave up the body she had received from Daksha and immediately transferred herself to another, better body, but this does not mean that she got a spiritual body. Okay. Here's like one example. Here Prabhupada mentions few personalities, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur. So we would always check the commentators that they had wider or deeper understanding or insight into the topic and realization that we might not have. And then Prabhupada included some of the bits of those commentaries and insights into his purport for our benefit. So let's move on to verse 28. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roaring all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? Purport. There was a tumultuous roaring all over the universe in the societies of the demigods of different planets, because Sati was the daughter of Daksha, the greatest of all kings, and the wife of Lord Shiva, the greatest of all demigods. Why did she become so angry that she gave up her body? Since she was the daughter of a great personality and wife of a great personality, she had nothing to desire, but still she gave up her body in dissatisfaction. Certainly this was astonishing. One cannot attain complete satisfaction even if one is situated in the greatest material opulence. There was nothing Sati could not achieve either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods. But still, for some reason, she was dissatisfied. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction, yatma suprasidati, But Atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only if one develops devotional service to the Absolute Truth. Savai Pumsham Parodharmo Yato Bhaktir Adokshaja. Adokshaja means the Absolute Truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the Transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there is no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. Here we see just like a footnote that I'll make it Atma. Someone might wonder, Atma means the soul, but here says Atma and then the hyphen, the body, mind, and soul. So the Atma can mean body, mind, and soul, and in this case, when Prabhupada used the word Atma, denoting all three of them. But in general, it means the soul then. Next verse. Next verse is 29. Translation. It was astonishing that Daksha, who was Prajapati, the maintainer of all living entities, was so disrespectful to his own daughter Sati, who was not only chaste, but was also a great soul, that she gave up her body because of his neglect. Purport. The word anatmya is significant. Atmya means the life of the soul. So this word indicates that although Daksha appeared to be living, actually he was a dead body. Otherwise, how could he neglect Sati, who was his own daughter? It was the duty of Daksha to look after the maintenance and comforts of all living entities, because he was situated as Prajapati, the governor of all living entities. Therefore, how is it that he neglected his own daughter, who was the most exalted and chaste woman, a great soul, and who therefore deserved the most respectful treatment from her father? The death of Sati, because of her being neglected by Daksha, her father, was most astonishing to all the great demigods of the universe. Text 13. Daksha, who is so hard-hearted that he is unworthy to be a Brahmana, will gain extensive ill fame because of his offenses to his daughter, because of not having prevented her death, and because of his great envy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. Daksha is described here as most hard-hearted and therefore unqualified to be a Brahmana. Brahmadruk is described by some commentators to mean Brahmabandhu, or friends of the Brahmanas. A person who is born in a Brahmana family but has no Brahminical qualifications is called a Brahmabandhu. Brahmanas are generally very soft-hearted and forbearing because they have the power to control the senses and the mind. Daksha, however, was not forbearing, for the simple reason that his son-in-law, Lord Shiva, did not stand up to show him the formality of respect. He became so angry and hard-hearted that he tolerated even the death of his dearest daughter. Sati tried her best to mitigate the misunderstanding between the son-in-law and the father-in-law by coming to her father's house, even without an invitation, and at that time Daksha should have received her, forgetting all past misunderstandings. But he was so hard-hearted that he was unworthy to be called an Aryan or Brahmana. Thus his ill fame still continues. Daksha means expert, and he was given this name because of his ability to beget many hundreds and thousands of children. Persons who are too sexually inclined and materialistic become so hard-hearted because of a slight loss of prestige that they can tolerate even the death of their children. Okay. Text 31. While people were talking among themselves about the wonderful voluntary death of Sati, the attendants who had come with her readied themselves to kill Daksha with their weapons. Purports. The attendants who came with Sati were meant to protect her from calamities, but since they were unable to protect their master's wife, they decided to die for her, and before dying they wanted to kill Daksha. It is the duty of attendants to give protection to their master, and in case of failure it is their duty to die. Text 32. They came forward forcibly, but Brigomuni saw the danger, and, offering oblations into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, immediately uttered mantric hymns from the Yajurveda by which the destroyers of yagnic performances could be killed immediately. Purport. Here is one example of powerful hymns in the Vedas which, when chanted, could perform wonderful acts. In the present age of Kali, it is not possible to find expert mantra chanters. Therefore, all the sacrifices recommended in the Vedas are forbidden in this age. The only sacrifice recommended in this age is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, because in this age it is not possible to accumulate the needed funds for performing sacrifices, not to speak of finding expert brahmanas who can chant the mantras perfectly. Text 33. When Brigomuni offered oblations in the fire, immediately many thousands of demigods named Ribus became manifested. All of them were powerful, having achieved strength from Soma, the moon. Purport. It is stated here that many thousands of demigods named Ribus became manifested because of the oblations offered in the fire and the chanting of the hymns from the Yajurveda. Brahmanas like Brigomuni were so powerful that they could create such powerful demigods simply by chanting the Vedic mantras. Vedic mantras are still available, but the chanters are not. By chanting Vedic mantras or chanting the Gayatri or Rik mantra, one can attain the results one desires. In the present age of Kali, it is recommended by Lord Chaitanya that simply by chanting Hare Krishna, one can attain all perfection. Text 34. When the Ribu demigods attacked the goats and Guhyakas with half-burned fuel from the Yagya fire, all these attendants of Sati fled in different directions and disappeared. This was possible simply because of Brahma Tejas, Brahminical power. Purport. The word Brahma Tejasa used in this verse is significant. In those days, Brahmanas were so powerful that simply by desiring and by chanting a Vedic mantra, they could accomplish very wonderful effects. But in the present age of degradation, there are no such Brahmanas. According to the Pancharatrika system, in this age the entire population is supposed to consist of Shudras, because the Brahminical culture has been lost. But if anyone displays the signs of understanding Krishna consciousness, he should be accepted, according to Vaishnava Smriti regulations, as a prospective Brahmana and should be given all facilities to achieve the highest perfection. The most magnanimous gift of Lord Chaitanya's is that the highest perfection of life is available in this fallen age if one simply adopts the process of chanting Hare Krishna, which is able to bring about the fulfillment of all activities in self-realization. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 4th canto, 4th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Sati Quits Her Body. So we're going to finish the chapter. Continuing into chapter 5, which is entitled Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. Before I start, I'd like to read a little excerpt or it's from the book Bhagavatam, like the summary of this chapter we're going to read, the frustration of the sacrifice of Daksha. So, hearing of Sati's death, Shiva became enraged, plucked one of his hairs, and created a huge black demon, Virabhadra, to kill Daksha. At the sacrificial arena, everything became eerily dark. A dust storm brewed, and a string of bad omens injected fear into everyone's heart. Shiva's soldiers then entered and desecrated the entire sacrificial setup, while Virabhadra mercilessly decapitated Daksha. The demon offered Daksha's head in the sacrificial fire, then set the entire arena alight and returned to Kailash. This is in short. So let's hear more details, starting with Maitreya. Maitreya Muni said, it's text 1. When Lord Shiva heard from Narada that Sati, his wife, was now dead because of Prajapati Daksha's insult to her, and that his soldiers had been driven away by the Ribu demigods, he became greatly angry. Purport. Lord Shiva understood that Sati, being the youngest daughter of Daksha, could present the case of Lord Shiva's purity of purpose and would thus be able to mitigate the misunderstanding between Daksha and himself. But such a compromise was not attained, and Sati was deliberately insulted by her father by not being received properly when she visited his house without being invited. Sati herself could have killed her father, Daksha, because she is the personified material energy and has immense power to kill and create within this material universe. In the Brahma Samhita, her strength is described. She is capable of creating and dissolving many universes. But although she is so powerful, she acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as his shadow. So, although she is so powerful, she acts under the direction of Krishna as his shadow. It would not have been difficult for Sati to punish her father, but she thought that since she was his daughter, it was not proper for her to kill him. Thus she decided to give up her own body, which she had obtained from his, and Daksha did not even check her. When Sati passed away, giving up her body, the news was conveyed by Narada to Lord Shiva. Narada always carries the news of such events because he knows their import. When Lord Shiva heard that his chaste wife, Sati, was dead, he naturally became exceedingly angry. He also understood that Bhrigu Muni had created the Ribudeva demigods by uttering the mantras of the Yajurveda, and that these demigods has driven away all of his soldiers who were present in the arena of sacrifice. Therefore he wanted to reply to this insult, and thus he decided to kill Daksha because he was the cause of the death of Sati. Text 2. Thus Lord Shiva, being extremely angry, pressed his lips with his teeth and immediately snatched from his head a strand of hair which blazed like electricity or fire. He stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. Wow, that's very descriptive. Text 3. A fearful black demon, as high as the sky, and as bright as 3 suns combined, was thereby created. His teeth were fearful, and the hairs of his head like burning fire. He had thousands of arms, equipped with various weapons, and he was garlanded with the heads of men. When that gigantic demon asked with folded hands, "What shall I do, my lord?" Lord Shiva, who is known as Bhutanath, directly ordered, "Because you are born from my body, you are the chief of all my associates. Therefore kill Daksha and his soldiers at the sacrifice." Purport. Here is the beginning of competition between Brahma Tejas and Shiva Tejas. By Brahma Tejas' Brahminical strength, Bhrigu Muni had created the Ribu demigods, who had driven away the soldiers of Lord Shiva stationed in the arena. When Lord Shiva heard that his soldiers had been driven away, he created the tall black demon Virabhadra to retaliate. There is sometimes a competition within the mode of goodness, and a mode of ignorance. That is the way of material existence. Even when one is situated in a mode of goodness, there is every possibility that his position will be mixed with or attacked by the mode of passion or ignorance. That is the law of material nature. Although pure goodness or Shuddha-sattva is the basic principle in the spiritual world, pure manifestation of goodness is not possible in this material world. Thus, the struggle for existence between different material qualities is always present. This quarrel between Lord Shiva and Bhrigu Muni, centering around Prajapati Daksha, is the practical example of such competition between the different qualitative modes of material nature. That we can also see in our lives, how these modes are fighting, literally fighting for the importance or for the position. So it's up to us to allow or feed the mode that we want to be in. I presume the goodness would be, but not necessarily, right? We have to first know what we want, and then we act on it. So you want goodness, you strive for goodness. Not just wishfully thinking, oh, it would be so nice to be in goodness. Here you go, preaching to myself now. And one wanted to do and plan his or her day, and encourage and feed and nurture those acts that are in mode of goodness, and then by that then they will become more prominent. They will become more how to say, as you feed someone more, it becomes more fat and more heavy, more substantial. Like they use this example from the dog you feed the most, the dog at symbolically having a bad or good and bad dog within yourself. The one will survive or will prevail. You can say the good dog, mode of goodness, the bad dog, the other two. So bad dogs, there's more dogs. Like a really nasty dog. Who's the nasty dog? Okay, I don't want to offend anyone, any dogs that are watching. So let's just get back into reading. That's 455. Translation. Maitreya continued. My dear Vidura, that black person was the personified anger of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was prepared to execute the orders of Lord Shiva. Thus, considering himself capable of coping with any power offered against him, he circumambulated Lord Shiva. Next. Many other soldiers of Lord Shiva followed the fierce personality in a tumultuous uproar. He carried a great trident, fearful enough to kill even death, and on his legs he wore bangles which seemed to roar. At that time, all the persons assembled in the sacrificial arena, the priests, the chief of the sacrificial performance, and the brahmanas and their wives, wondered where the darkness was coming from. Later they could understand it. It was a dust storm, and all of them were full of anxiety. Conjecturing on the origin of the storm, they said, "There is no wind blowing, and no cows are passing, nor is it possible that this dust storm could be raised by plunderers where there is still the strong King Barhi who would punish them. Where is this dust storm blowing from? Is the dissolution of the planet now to occur? Purport. Specifically significant in this verse is Prachina Barir Jivati. The king of that part of the land was known as Barhi, and although he was old, he was still living, and he was a very strong ruler. Thus there was no possibility of an invasion by thieves and plunderers. Indirectly, it is stated here that thieves, plunderers, rogues, and unwanted population can exist only in a state of king or kingdom where there is no strong ruler. Yeah, very significant point. Very simple and very, sensical, one that makes sense. When, in the name of justice, thieves are allowed liberty, the state and kingdom are disturbed by such plunderers and unwanted population. The dust storm created by the soldiers and assistants of Lord Shiva resembled the situation at the time of the dissolution of this world. When there is a need for the dissolution of the material creation, this function is conducted by Lord Shiva. Therefore, the situation now created by him resembled the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. 9. Prasuti, the wife of Daksha, along with the other women assembled, became very anxious and said, "This danger has been created by Daksha because of the death of Sati, who, even though completely innocent, quit her body as her sisters looked on." Purport. Prasuti, being a soft-hearted woman, could immediately understand that the imminent danger approaching was due to the impious activity of hard-hearted Prajapati Daksha. He was so cruel that he would not save her youngest daughter Sati from the act of committing suicide in the presence of her sisters. Sati's mother could understand how much Sati had been pained by the insult of her father. Sati had been present along with the other daughters, and Daksha had purposely received all of them but her. Because she happened to be the wife of Lord Shiva. This consideration convinced the wife of Daksha of the danger which was now ahead, and thus she knew that Daksha must be prepared to die for his heinous act. Okay, he's getting what he deserves. Text 10. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva's hair is scattered, and he pierces the rulers of the different directions with his trident. He laughs and dances proudly, scattering their hands like flags, as thunder scatters the clouds all over the world. Purport. Prasuti, who appreciated the power and strength of her son-in-law, Lord Shiva, is describing what he does at the time of dissolution. This description indicates that the strength of Lord Shiva is so great that Daksha's power could not be set in comparison to it. At the time of dissolution, Lord Shiva, with his trident in hand, dances over the rulers of the different planets, and his hair is scattered, just as the clouds are scattered over all directions in order to plunge the different planets into incessant torrents of rain. In the last phase of dissolution, all the planets become inundated with water, and that inundation is caused by the dancing of Lord Shiva. This dance is called the Pralaya dance, or dance of dissolution. Prasuti could understand that the dangers ahead resulted not only from Daksha's having neglected her daughter, but also because of his neglecting the prestige and honor Lord Shiva. Okay, I'm sinking into the flood of devastation. Continuing reading Srimad Bhagavatam. The gigantic black man bared his fearful teeth. Bared. By the movements of his brows, he scattered the luminaries all over the sky, and he covered them with his strong, piercing effulgence. Because of the misbehavior of Daksha, even Lord Brahma, Daksha's father, could not have been saved from the great exhibition of anger. Just trying to remember what's the Shiva's name when he does this cosmic dance. Nataraj, yeah? Nataraj. Just when I was about to surrender, then the name came. I said Mahadev. It's not Mahadev. It's Nilakanta. It's not Nilakanta. It's Bhutanath. It's not. He is Bhutanath, but there's another name. Very famous sculpture, also of dancing Shiva, which means king of all dancers. So, next text. While all the people talked amongst themselves, Daksha saw dangerous omens from all sides, from the earth and from sky. Purport. In this verse, Daksha has been described as Mahatma. The word Mahatma has been commented upon by different commentators in various manners. Veera Raghavacharya has indicated that this word Mahatma means steady in heart. That is to say that Daksha was so strong-hearted that even when his beloved daughter was prepared to lay down her life, he was steady and unshaken. But in spite of his being so strong-hearted, he was perturbed when he saw the various disturbances created by the gigantic black demon. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks in this connection that even if one is called Mahatma, a great soul, unless he exhibits the symptoms of a Mahatma, he should be considered a Duratma, or a degraded soul. In Bhagavad Gita 9.13, the word Mahatma describes the pure devotee of the Lord. Mahatmanas tu mam parta dalvim prakritim ashritaha. A Mahatma is always under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus, how could such a misbehaved person as Daksha be a Mahatma? A Mahatma is supposed to have all the good qualities of the demigods, and thus Daksha, lacking those qualities, could not be called a Mahatma. He should instead be called Duratma, the degraded soul. The word Mahatma to describe the qualities of Daksha is used sarcastically. Okay. So, see, that's always wise to read the purport, where we get the explanation of many acharyas, condensed and brought to you by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. One might just get confused, saying, here we go, I just call him Mahatma, what is this? We just heard what happened. So Prabhupada didn't mention this Mahatma. Mahatma he translated here as strong-hearted. Mahatma. So in a different way. Or here at the end he says sarcastically. Text 13. My dear Vidura, all the followers of Lord Shiva surrounded the arena of sacrifice. They were of short stature and were equipped with various kinds of weapons. Their bodies appeared to be like those of sharks, blackish and yellowish. They ran all around the sacrificial arena and thus began to create disturbances. Some of the soldiers pulled down the pillars which were supporting the pandal of sacrifice. Some of them entered the female quarters. Some began destroying the sacrificial arena, and some entered the kitchen and the residential quarters. They broke all the pots made for use in the sacrifice, and some of them began to extinguish the sacrificial fire. Some tore down the boundary line of the sacrificial arena, and some passed urine on the arena. Oh, gross. Some blocked the way of the fleeing sages, some threatened the women assembled there, and some arrested demigods who were fleeing in the pandal. Pandemonium. Maniman, one of the followers of Lord Shiva, arrested Bhrigu, and Virabhadra, the black demon, arrested Prajapati Daksha. Another follower, who was named Chandesha, arrested Pusha. Nandishvara arrested the demigod Bhaga. There's the Shiva's police force, or Garda. There was a continuous shower of stones, and all the priests and other members assembled at the sacrifice were put into immense misery. For fear of their lives, they dispersed in various or in different directions. Okay. Virabhadra tore off the moustache of Bhrigu, who was offering the sacrificial oblations with his hands in the fire. Virabhadra immediately called Bhaga, who had been moving his eyebrows during Bhrigu's cursing of Lord Shiva, and out of great anger thrust him to the ground and forcibly put out his eyes. Excuse me. Just as Baladeva knocked out the teeth of Dantavakra, the king of Kalinga, during the gambling match at the marriage ceremony of Aniruddha, Virabhadra knocked out the teeth of both Daksha, who had shown them while cursing Lord Shiva, and Pusha, who, by smiling sympathetically, had also shown his teeth. Purport. Here a reference is made to the marriage of Aniruddha, a grandson of Lord Krishna's. He kidnapped the daughter of Dantavakra, and thereafter he was arrested. Just as he was to be punished for the kidnapping, the soldiers from Dwarka arrived, headed by Balaram, and a fight ensued amongst the Kshatriyas. This sort of fight was very common, especially during marriage ceremonies, when everyone was in the challenging spirit. In that challenging spirit, a fight was sure to occur, and in such fights there was commonly killing and misfortune. After finishing such fighting, the parties would come to a compromise, and everything would be settled. This Daksha Yagya was similar to such events. Now all of them, Daksha and the demigods, Bhaga and Pusha and Bhrigu Muni, were punished by the soldiers of Lord Shiva, but later everything would come to a peaceful end. So this spirit of fighting between one another was not exactly inimical. Because everyone was so powerful and wanted to show his strength by Vedic mantra or mystic power, all these fighting skills were very elaborately exhibited by the different parties at the Daksha Yagya. 22. When Virabhadra, the giant-like personality, sat on the chest of Daksha and tried to separate his head from his body with sharp weapons, but was unsuccessful. He tried to cut the head of Daksha with hymns as well as weapons, but still it was hard to cut even the surface of the skin of Daksha's head. Thus Virabhadra was exceedingly bewildered. Then Virabhadra saw the wooden device in the sacrificial arena by which the animals were to have been killed. He took the opportunity of this facility to behead Daksha. Purport. In this connection, it is to be noted that the device used for killing animals in the sacrifice was not designed to facilitate eating their flesh. The killing was specifically intended to give a new life to the sacrificial animal by the power of Vedic mantra. The animals were sacrificed to test the strength of Vedic mantras. Yagyas were performed as a test of the mantra. Even in the modern age, tests are executed on animal bodies in the physiology laboratory. Similarly, whether or not the Brahmanas were uttering the Vedic hymns correctly was tested by sacrifice in the arena. On the whole, the animals thus sacrificed were not at all the losers. Some old animals would be sacrificed, but in exchange for their old bodies they received other new bodies. That was the test of Vedic mantra. Virabhadra, instead of sacrificing animals with the wooden device, immediately beheaded Daksha to the astonishment of everyone. 25. Upon seeing the action of Virabhadra, the party of Lord Shiva was pleased and cried out joyfully, and all the bhutas, ghosts and demons that had come made a tumultuous sound. On the other hand, the Brahmanas in charge of the sacrifice cried out in grief at the death of Daksha. Next text. Virabhadra then took the head and with great anger threw it into the southern side of the sacrificial fire, offering it as an oblation. In this way, the followers of Lord Shiva devastated all the arrangements for sacrifice. After setting fire to the whole arena, they departed for their master's abode, Kailash. So we end. This does end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, fifth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled "Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha." And thus also ends today's reading. It's the little earlier, but we are going to finish at the end of the chapter. It makes sense to start a fresh new chapter next time, which will be on Monday. Next Monday, I believe it's Ekadashi, but I can be wrong. So yeah, 6 o'clock we'll continue reading here, same on Facebook and YouTube, live from Iskcon Dublin. So thank you again for your attention. My name is Manda Vikramas, and see you next time. Hare Krishna.